That's why it's good. That's why computer games are great, because we live that world. Some people love watching TV, and I think for a non-gamer, that gives you just as much distraction from life as it does for a gamer.
That's a good point. Good point.
Yeah, because if I watch a TV show, it's gotta be good. Otherwise, my head is still thinking, maybe I should move the second chorus, or maybe I should I need to come up with a different melody.
You're always working, man.
Yeah, and that's not healthy. It's really not. You need to be able to disconnect from the world. So playing a video game, it's interactive. So unless you literally think, if I don't go over there, I'm gonna get killed. But if I go over there, I might find a treasure. Whatever you're thinking or whatever. Oh, I wonder what's on the other side. Oh, how do I make... it's too cold for me to go over there. How do I make... to take Mass Effect as an example, I need to somehow start terraforming this world. So because I'm thinking all these thoughts, then my mind is being distracted from
the song that you've been working on for the past 6 hours.
Actually, my manager, Alex, he's so great with this, because I don't know if you feel this way. I mean, probably not anymore, but I remember really feeling that it was embarrassing to tell people that I play video games. It was embarrassing, yeah.
Oh yeah, I still have that.
Yeah.
I still because especially as you get older, and maybe it's because the back when we were kids, we didn't know. If you told people you played video games, you were branded the nerd. You'd get your ass kicked at school. It was a bad thing. Nowadays, it's different. So, but still, that carried over to my adulthood. So I'm afraid to tell people I'm into playing Skyrim, and I've spent 60 plus hours playing this game. I'm afraid people will look at me as like, well, what have you done with your life?
Yeah.
Did you know that you could do something productive with your life with all those hours that you put into video games? It's like, I think I've done pretty well. I have my own house. I'm about to buy another one. I think I've done pretty well for myself. I think I deserve some fucking meditation time and with a controller in my hand. God damn it! Sorry.
No, but you're right, because that's what it is. I completely agree with you. So Alex, he's always telling me, "Did you play any video games?" And I'm like, no, I haven't played any video games. And he's like, "Dude, you gotta play some video games." and it took me a little while to understand what he was actually saying. But what he was saying was that because I do that, I am a happier guy, because it gives me some sort of break from thinking.
Yeah.
Because even if you're having a conversation, sometimes your mind is still thinking, what if I... And you just don't do that with a video game. You're just in it. You're living a movie, because that's what it is.
Yeah,
really.
You're living
You're living an interactive movie, and I love that about video games. So I'm actually a proud gamer.
There you go.
I am, and I don't play as much as I used to. But I would lie if I said that if I say I don't play video games or I didn't play that week, I'm sure I did. Even if it's on my phone, I'll play a game. There's always there's just the need for interactive. This connection from real life, and I think for some people it's TV, for some people it's sitting at the bar, for some people it's going rock climbing, for some people it's hiking, for some people it's driving somewhere or biking, or for some people it could be anything. But for kids it's playing games. For me and for you it's video games, and I think it's something to be proud of, that realization.
At the same time, though, you have to be careful not to let that be all of your life, just like anything, because I do have friends who have children who, their child plays a little bit too much, and it becomes a thing, it becomes like, you don't do your chores, and I had that problem as a kid too, where all I wanted to do was, I wanted to play Final Fantasy VIII. I just have to do this, Mom. And she did a good job. She noticed, and she was like, you do all your chores, you do all your homework first, and then you get to play your game. And if I didn't do that, she would disconnect it all. Or Dad did, because she didn't know how to do it. But Dad did. And he would take my PlayStation and he would set it up in his room and be like, do all your shit first, and then, because that teaches you that while you know, it is fun to, it's very easy, especially at a young age, to get lost in that world.
Absolutely.
Especially if the child is troubled or whatever, or, you know, it's very easy to escape.
Yeah.
And while we use it to escape from, you know, from like just being an adult and just being like, oh my gosh, just like, I can deal with this right now. Let me just sit down and just relax for a second. Yeah. Children will use it to just escape from everything, like all the hard work that is needed to be a human being in this world.
There's such a fine line here, because so I was very, very depressed at some point, and I would play video games the entire time, and I would find excuses to do this. This is in Denmark, actually, not long before I moved to America with David.
And then became rock stars.
But before that, I was very, very depressed, like very, very depressed. And I think I have a lot of empathy for people going through a rough time because of that, because I understand. I really understand. And it wasn't even an escape. It was more like the way our minds work when we're feeling a certain way. Happy, sad, whatever, anything. The way our minds work is that we will always find ways to justify staying in that situation. So if we're feeling sad, the natural reaction to that is pity, because when we grow up and we say we're sick, right? We have the flu. Our mom will say, "Oh, little baby," and then we are. It's a good feeling to know that somebody cares. So a lot of times, for me, my reaction was that people would say, "Oh, you're feeling bad," and then I started feeling self-pity, and I started finding all these reasons for constantly justifying staying in that same world. So my escape, or whatever you want to call it, was video games, and I would get so sucked into living in this world of online video gaming and talking to people that I had no other relationship with, and I would constantly stay away from the real world. But also, this is my point with it, is that I didn't know what my problem was. I didn't understand my problem. I just knew that it felt good to constantly justify my self-pity and stay away from the real world. I later on discovered what it was, and then I started dealing with it, and it hit me suddenly. I'm like, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to move past this. But because I didn't know what it was, and I don't know if that's necessarily related to kids, but because I think that also has to do with exploring their creativity and their imagination more than anything. Because I didn't know what it was some sort of escape that made sense for me. Later, when I look back at it, this is going to sound crazy. I wouldn't trade it for the world, because it made me more determined and more constructive and stronger than I ever was. And I think if I hadn't gone through that time, I wouldn't be able to appreciate the good things, and I wouldn't be able to stop myself from thinking and feeling bad, and stop myself from pitying myself when those situations happen again, and stop myself, more importantly, from freaking out and reacting to whenever I started feeling, so now I'm just gonna stay in and feel bad for myself. So in some weird way, the video gaming, that sounded like I was wasting my life away.
But in reality,
I would have wasted my life away on something else. I would have wasted my life away on bad things, probably, if it hadn't been for that. Because some people are just prone to going through something. We are all born with a set of culture that comes from our family, from bullying, from all these things, from feeling left out, from being the shit, from all these things are part of who we are as people, and you have to deal with that. So if your way of dealing with it is going that direction or that direction or that direction or that direction, that is different from person to person. All I know is that you are going to be fine if you are open to the fact that one day you're going to realize, oh my God, I did that, or I did that, or I did that. And in the end, all we can do is hope for a good life, right? And we can try our best to make it the way it is. But I don't know. This is my point. I don't know. I don't know what right and wrong is when it comes to doing something too much. Somebody's been in a relationship for 2 years and they say, "Oh, it was such a waste of time. It didn't work out." And no, it wasn't a waste of time.
Right.
You found out what you didn't want.
Right.
And you grew up in that relationship, and you found out that this person was too much or too little or whatever it was.
Well, because it comes it's interesting, especially when you're dealing with children, because, for example, like I played pretty violent video games. Like, how old was I when the first Resident Evil came out? I can't remember how old I was, but I was pretty young. I was definitely younger than the ESRB rating. Was allowed you to play that game. But my mom brings this up to all of her friends all the time when they talk about like school violence or violent kids or whatever. And the argument is if a kid watches violent movies or violent anything, they're going to be programmed to be violent. Studies show that that's not necessarily the case. And in my case, I would play violent video games. I would play games like Manhunt. That fucking game where all you do is like tear off people's heads and your whole goal is to kill people. Like, that is the only goal in the game, is to murder people. And the more brutal you kill this person, the better you get, better you do in the game.
Wow.
But but games like Resident Evil, there's blood everywhere, heads coming off. And I've never been in a fight in my life. Never been into a physical altercation except with my buddy Kyle. But he deserved it because we were 8 years old, and he was a kid that would wake up like at 7. I was the kid that would wake up at 10 on a weekend, like normal human beings, like normal children. And then he would we'd be sleeping together on the big bed right here, and he would come up. I'm just dead asleep, and he would come up and go, "Shane," and he would like rub his hands on me, "Shane," and it was so annoying.
So you punched him?
Oh yeah, I couldn't handle it. I was like, "Leave me alone."
That's so funny.
Leave me alone. And then finally, one day, I just went like full gorilla on him, and it was just like,
amazing. You guys are like brothers. I've definitely been in a fight with my brother, like bad fight actually. I remember once, when we were little, my mom took us to we were looking for curtains, I think. And him and I got in a full-on fist fight in the curtain store. Yeah, she was so mad. And we must have been like 10 years old or something.
But I think that's different. 12 or something. I think that's the difference. Because when you're brothers, I mean, you just have... It's
different, yeah. I've never been in a fight either with I was bullied like
I was too,
so much in school. And there was definitely options where I chose the
high ground,
the crying route, and the running away and crying instead of fighting back. And again, these are all parts of making you who you are. Who knows? If that hadn't happened, maybe I wouldn't have been in America. Maybe we wouldn't have been doing this podcast.
Maybe you would have been an MMA fighter.
Maybe. I think video game, good parenting definitely helps. It's also like what's real and what's not real. If you spend your when you're 6 to 10 years old and you run around in a video game with a flamethrower burning people, and maybe it's not that healthy.
Well, what my dad did, and it was so smart of him to do this, because I am deathly afraid of guns because of this. And because my dad was born in Missouri, so he's kind of a good old boy, but he kind of has that accent and kind of talk like us a little bit. He's Elvis. But he noticed that I was playing with a lot of toy guns, and you know, I started really liking guns and stuff like that. And so my dad and my uncle were shooting their guns out in Joplin, Missouri, while we were visiting my grandmother. And I was like, how old was I? 6? I can't remember how old. I was young. I was very young. And my dad brought me outside, and he's like, I want to show you something. I want to show you what a real gun is. And I'm going to show you that this is something to not be fucked with. He didn't say that to me, to my face, but he's just like, this is what happens with real guns. And I'm going to show you not to mess with these. If any of your friends have them, you run away, or you tell the nearest adult. And he had me hold the gun. It was a tiny gun too. It was like one of those like little, like 8 millimeters, you know, just like really shot at 22 or something like that. But still, holding that gun with my little tiny hands and shooting it, the power I felt in my hand was so scary that from that point on, I was like, I'm never touching a gun again. Never doing it. Never touching that gun. And then from that point on, I realized what a toy gun was and what a real gun was. Yeah.